Welcome everyone to episode 4 of the LEC Lounge. I'm your host, Eefje Sjokz, and I'm joined today by my friend and colleague, epic play-by-play caster here in Europe in the LEC, and also, as of a couple of years, the on-air talent manager, Trevor Quickshot Henry. I'm just going to call you Trevor. I think all the introduction is not needed. Still, I'm very happy that you're joining me here today.
It's just really cool to be here. I'm excited to talk about a few things that we don't normally get to talk about.
Exactly. Well, Trevor, it's lovely to talk to you. We, of course, don't see each other that often anymore since I've gone freelance.
Since you left us.
I left the nest.
You left our home.
Yeah, I did.
Which I was really excited about. You actually caught me off guard when you mentioned it to me last year, a long time ago, very early in the year.
You thought I wouldn't do it.
I really thought you were going to be too scared. But what I really appreciated is that over the years, our relationship has got to the point now where not only are we just colleagues, but you actually brought up that you wanted to go to this freelance, that you really wanted to explore it. And I was super excited for you. And of course, part of that was the fact that I'd moved into the managerial role. But yeah, it's really cool. I'm just really glad we still get to work together.
Yeah, me too. I mean, at the end of the day, that was also something that was very important to me. And I think it's interesting because we both have such a year-long now experience in this team. And we were kind of there before everyone, or with Joe and D-Man back in the day. And then everything changed and now we're still here. So I think there's a lot of ground to cover. And let's maybe start with that because you've now been doing esports for 10 years, right? Almost a decade?
Yeah, I mean, I've been working in the industry since 2011.
Yeah.
So call it this is my 9th year. But I mean, I've been watching and playing really hardcore watching for 15 plus years.
What was your game, the one you were good at?
I mean, I used to compete in Call of Duty 4. I got invited first to play Battlefield 2, and that got cut my teeth in competitive gaming. And I played in teams, I went to LANs, and after competing in Battlefield 2 for a year and a half, Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare dropped. Yeah. And I just dove, real deep. And from really enjoying competing and attending tournaments and winning prizes, I started experimenting and watching, like, what are the esports are there? What are the games are there? And I just I'm just hooked. I love everything about esports. I'm actually very different to a lot of modern day viewers that I don't watch Twitch and YouTube content. If it's not a competition, I don't watch it, and that's something that drove me.
Was it esports awareness? Because I remember for me back then, it wasn't like the word esports with Unreal Tournament way back when, 20 years ago almost. It was not like, oh, this is esports. It was more, it's games. I love playing games. I love playing games competitively online and on LAN. But that kind of whole growth of the term and everything, that came later.
It was a different world.
Yeah.
It was a completely different world. I mean, I think it would be closer to just tournaments and really bragging rights. I played online because I was good at the game I played. Yeah. I joined a team because I got invited to, and the guys I was playing with were really good. And we enjoyed beating other people and letting them know we were better than them. Like, there's that just drive to prove that you're the best. But the word esports in the industry was a pipe dream. I lived in South Africa. I grew up in Johannesburg. There's not a lot of video game players. There's not great internet connection. It's a gigantic country, so pings are really bad for servers. So for me, it was a passion. I was fortunate enough to combine passion with my studies to eventually become work. But I had no idea that the industry and my profession would end up where they did back when I started.
So connect the dots for me, because you're in South Africa. It's logistically not very easy to play. I'm sure there's a lot going on if you live in South Africa, in Johannesburg, right? But you're starting to have this sensation of, I really like this. I really want to pursue this.
What's really cool about it, and what's different in South Africa to a lot of other countries, because internet sucks, and because the fiber networks, the DSL is just really bad, and then the country's huge, which means your pings are really bad. Every city and every town has different LANs, and I would travel anywhere from 50 to 200 kilometers to go attend different tournaments, and sometimes it'd be individual, sometimes it'd be with my team. But I loved competition. I'm very structured, I'm very process-driven, as you know, working together. I think I'm closer to a robot than a human being, at least I was back then, and I've learned to have feelings, which we'll talk about later. But no, I loved everything about competing. I loved everything about Battlefield 2 and then Call of Duty 4. And actually what ended up connecting the dots to make it a job I was a part-time computer salesman. I sold hardware and software in a store.
In the realm.
In the realm, and I have loved talking. I've always loved talking. I used to do public speaking and debating. I was studying marketing and business management. And I was like, I'm just going to be I'm going to sell things, or I'm going to advertise things. I'm going to do things where I can talk. And in South Africa, you'd say if somebody was really good at it, they could sell ice to an Eskimo.
Yeah.
And that was the direction I was going. And the star player on my team, his dad worked at a computer store. If you're in Germany and you know MediaMarkt or Saturn, imagine the branch manager. His son, who was 15 years old, was my star player. And I said to him, can you get your dad to give us free mice and keyboards? So I met his dad. In speaking to his dad, I was 20 at the time. His dad then said to me, there's something like, Trev, there's something I can't quite believe. There's something about you. Can I introduce you to the regional manager? So then we spoke to the regional manager. Johannesburg is a city. It's part of a province called Gauteng. I then spoke to the regional director in Gauteng. And he went, Trev, I think you're aiming too small. Why don't you speak to the head of new products and design at the head office? And the head office was around the corner. So I took my brother in. Over the years of playing, I had sort of adopted ownership and leadership of not only my team, but then the older guys left, they stopped playing. So I took over the clan.
Yeah.
And I had 5 active teams in 4 games. I was around 40 members. And my second Call of Duty team was captained by my younger brother. How
interesting is it that your kind of career path as to what it is now, you kind of had it already, the version. So you went from playing and then managing everything around it. And then now you went from casting to still casting, but also managing everything around it.
I like responsibility. I like being a leader.
That is that's not very common, right?
I like being a boss, and I really like when my head is on the line, whether it's in a game and I have to prove I'm better than somebody else and it's competitive, or whether I'm making a decision about which players to be on my starting roster or which strategy to use. I was a very aggressive caller in my team and like in-game leader. And then when it comes to work, I love seeing my decisions and my ambitions not only come to life, but to be good and to push things forward.
Yeah.
So in this meeting for sponsorship, my brother came with me. We were chatting. My brother pipes up, you guys don't know anything about gaming. You should hire Trevor. And I nearly shit a brick. I was like, what are you doing? I just want keyboards and mice.
Yeah.
And this guy said, yeah, well, give me a business proposal. So I pitched him. I was finishing university about a year and 3 months later.
Yeah.
And he said, he'll wait for me. And we agreed on like an 18-month business plan to launch new products in his stores.
Yeah.
And to break into this market that he didn't have a foothold in. So that was my first sort of foray into mixing my passion for video games and esports with my ability to talk and sell, but then also with some informed decisions based on studies.
I think you're one of those people who was going to be successful no matter what, but that's not always clear to the people themselves.
Yep.
How was it for you? When you were doing this, did you know, okay, you know what, I'm on the right track and I'm going to keep going here? Or was there still uncertainty as to where you were going to go?
I knew it when I got the job offer.
Okay.
I knew I was good at video games when I won tournaments. And winning things didn't really matter a huge amount. It was nice. It was a bonus. I would get a graphics card here and some prize money there. But I distinctly remember the very first time Acer Predator launched their machines. They hosted an event in South Africa. The top 6 players from all of the Call of Duty servers were invited. And I was the 6th seeded player that was invited. Over 3,000 players were registered, and I managed to make 6th. And I was super disappointed that I was only 6th. I was like, this is the lowest seed. It was on a Wednesday night. I was in university, and my dad said to me, you got to be home by 11. So I said, okay, fine. The event started at 7. It was kind of like a boxing ring theme. And when I knew esports, I was good. And when I knew I understood things, I got to this event and I saw the 5 other guys. Not one of them knew how to network. Not one of them knew how to speak to the sponsors, the journalists, the businessmen, like I did. And I'm like, okay, great. I might be 6th seeded in the game, but I'm winning this like interview, this like social media interview world.
Yeah.
I ended up winning the tournament, and I won the equivalent of like 1,500 euros in cash at like 20 years old.
Yeah.
I only got home at 1. And my dad lost it, absolutely lost it. And I stood there and I was calm, I was serene, which for me 12 years ago, nobody would believe. And all I did is I gave him the envelope and I said, take a look. My dad opened it and he went, where did you steal this from? And I just looked him in the eyes and I said, wait till you see the front page of the newspaper tomorrow. I'm going to be on it. And I was like, that's awesome. And then that got my parents off my back. They said, okay, I have gaming nights, Tuesdays, Thursdays, Sundays. Those are my scrim nights. Those are my clan nights.
Yeah.
And when I got to convert that to a job, and I pitched this guy an incredible connection, this 18-month project, the hit points I'd want, my estimations on revenue, how much money I'd need to buy products, etc. And he said, yeah, I'll give it to you. I overinflated my salary. I asked for 7-hour work days. I asked for a company car. And he said, I'll give it to you. And I went,
what's going on?
What?
Yeah.
But that was the big thing for me, was like, okay, if I set my mind to something and if I really, really put energy and effort and planning, I can make it a reality.
Well, and then you take what I would think your parents would see as a step backwards, because now you have the possibility and you have this job with the own, the company car and everything, but you don't want to do that at a certain point. You want to be a community manager for Riot Games, for League of Legends in Germany, and possibly also a caster. So where did that come from?
Oh man, okay, so this is a very long story, and there's a few steps we need to get there.
Yeah.
The first thing is why I left South Africa, because I had a really good paying job in an industry I really liked. And even though I wasn't super in love with selling hardware, because the one downside to the job is the only thing that mattered was how much profit I was generating at the different events. I introduced new product lines, and the only thing that mattered was how much did I make.
You're kind of like a money cow.
And it got tiring, right?
Cow,
My parents are British. They were born and met there. And the reason this is important is I have a British passport and a South African passport. And in the 17th month of my contract, I was in the phase where we're starting to renegotiate and do we want to do another 18 months. By this stage, my entire family had immigrated. I have 3 aunts and an uncle on my mum's side. I have 4 aunts and 2 uncles on my dad's side. Only one of them lived in South Africa and everybody else had left. It is not a safe place.
Yeah.
House robberies, hijackings, muggings, it's commonplace. And that's just normal there, And in my 17th month of the contract, I was driving home from work one day. I wish I knew what I was thinking. I really wish I knew, but I was parked at a traffic light and somebody smashed my window, knocked me out with a taser, and pulled me out the car. I woke up in hospital 2.5 days later. I woke up in an amputee ward in a South African hospital. And I had just my underwear and my t-shirt, and I was covered in urine, stank. And it was an amputee ward. And I vividly remember my very, very, very first thought was looking around, looking at myself and going, this is hell.
Yeah.
I'm like, I've died and this is hell. And I think I lay there for probably 20 minutes or 30 minutes. I was too afraid to move, make a noise. And then eventually when I built up the courage to see what's happening, the nurses told me that somebody found me on the side of the road. An ambulance picked me up. I had no ID, no phone, no wallet, no money. So I got taken to a public hospital.
Yeah.
Was put on some IV drips. And now they're like, okay, well, good luck.
But did they not, the first thing I would do is like check if you're okay and tell you are okay.
So they basically said there was no physical harm. Okay. There was nothing else done. I was literally just knocked out.
Your car's gone.
Concussed.
Yeah.
And they said, what I found out much later was basically I was hit with a really souped up cattle prod. And it just knocked me out for like 48 hours or whatever it was. The nurses, so I had no money, I had no phone, no identification. I don't know people's phone numbers. I don't know their parents. I still don't.
Oh.
I only know my phone number, right?
Yeah.
And this nurse actually gave me some money to get in a taxi to drive to the police station. And then at the police station, they helped me contact people. I got onto like my Gmail and got phone numbers and everything. Fortunately, a very good friend of mine was actually an ambulance medic. And he came over to pick me up and he did a check over it on me. And what really bothered me about the whole thing, because I've accepted it, I understand it. That's just what happens in South Africa. Yeah. And this line that I'm about to say is what drove me out of the country. I spoke to police officers, I spoke to my friends, I spoke to my family, I spoke to my boss, I spoke to my friends, I told them the story. And the very first thing that every single person said was, oh, you're so lucky it was professionals. And that's true. They didn't do anything more. They didn't beat me up more. They didn't, go further.
That's
and
all.
Every time I heard that line, I just went, why is this normal?
Yeah. Why is this so normalized? Why am I choosing to still be here?
And basically after 3 or 4 days of checkups and recovery and everything, I phoned my boss and I said, I'd like to quit my contract early. I'm leaving.
I'm out of here.
And this is where I then started looking for work. I moved to the UK. After in UK, I was looking for work. I worked in a McDonald's and a KFC. I just needed a job. Job led to Berlin. I was doing community management for a very small game called War to Glory. And basically through working in that field, I met people who said, Trevor, you're so passionate about video games. You should try it.
Yeah.
And I did. I started practicing some shoutcasting that led to a couple of people noticing me. And actually, Matt Knott, who's a former rioter from Dublin and community manager, he reached out to me, as well as Daniel Klein, Zen on the Stoic. At the time, they were working community for Germany and English, and they said, you should interview, you should join. Took a shot, and I managed to get hired on my first set of interviews. And that started my shoutcaster journey, which may never have happened if I'd not gotten hijacked. If I'd re-signed 18 months, I might still be selling graphics cards in South Africa.
We were talking, I was talking to the Fisher a bit earlier, also about his career, and he pointed out that there are so many things that happen in life that you didn't know were going to happen, but led you on a certain path. Nothing as drastic as this, and definitely not something I'd ever want to happen to you again, of course. And it's incredible that you can now just tell the story, and very good for all of us, but it's also crazy how it, it's the ripple effect.
It's also, it's perspective, right?
Yeah.
And a lot of people will hear that, and a lot of people will be very, very shocked and very appalled. And ironically, in retrospect, I am lucky it was professionals.
Yeah.
And it's one of the things where when you live in a country that has these nuances to it, you don't know different. That's just your normal. Mm-hmm. And one of the things that it really did help me with is put a lot of things into perspective, a lot of things not only on a personal level, but on a professional level. And I chased every opportunity I was ever given. And at a very, very, very young age, I had a very traumatic experience that just made it even more powerful in me. So that every time a door was opened, I didn't just look through it and go, should I try? I'd run through it. If there's a possibility to do something, it just really drove into my mind, go for it, chase what you want, do what you want, be smart about it, understand what you can and can't do, but you have to chase it.
Do you think it hardened your personality as a person?
Absolutely.
Yeah?
Absolutely. But that's everything in South Africa, It's cold, it's harsh, it's not safe. There's a lot of realities and a lot of things you have to accept in South Africa that made me as deliberate, as determined, as strong-willed, as stubborn. And then ironically, when I left and I started traveling around Europe and people didn't have these life experiences, I butted heads with a lot of people because I was so firm on my viewpoints and so, this is the only way to do it. And this, and I think only when you step back and look at it, you can understand why. Yeah,
everything has a place, of course, in the evolution of every single person. So I think this is important context also. I don't think a lot of people know about this at all.
I've never
Most
spoken
people know you're from South Africa.
Yeah.
Or you have South African roots. So I'm glad you shared it with me. And it puts a lot into context, right? Because you did get that shoutcaster job, community. And I would say you came in at the time when League was really exploding, right? Yeah. Did you have that feeling of, oh my, this is going to get out of hand real quick. This game is absolutely dominating.
No.
No?
I think I was so wrapped up in the excitement of it.
Yeah.
I think the first time it sunk in is actually 2013 Gamescom.
Yeah.
So it was August. We were still working at ESL.
Yeah.
Kobe and Jat actually came over to help us because we didn't have enough shoutcasters for the whole tournament and whatnot. And I think the first time that I really realized how big it was on that stage. Gamescom also falls over my birthday, which is in August. And I'd watched
like the mecca of games.
It is.
Isn't it?
And I'd watched Gamescom from home, from South Africa, and I've read every article and I've read every preview. And I dreamed about standing in queue to play the next Call of Duty iteration when I was younger. And on my birthday, I got to open the show and commentate in Gamescom. And I stood backstage and I started crying.
It's crazy.
And I'm actually tearing up now a little bit thinking about it. And I think that was the first time I'd been doing freelance for a year. I'd gone to DreamHack. We'd been to Moscow. I'd done road trips.
Tenerife.
I unfortunately missed Tenerife because I was in LA.
Yeah.
But I think the first time it really sunk in for me was when it was very emotional and close to home.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh my God, this is the best birthday present
I believe
ever.
that was the one where I remember because it was very important to me as well because I remember just a year before and 2 years before, I'd just always gone to Gamescom, right? And also watched League and the people, there wasn't enough room to sit everyone because I think at that point, League had already outgrown Gamescom or just a space that could be given to them, right? And we had a little analyst desk. Was that the same?
Yes, it was. A little cocktail table.
Yeah, Crepo was there as well. Yeah. And then you had the casters, and yeah, it was crazy.
What was amazing for me is that when I think back, at the time, we would not be able to talk like we did now.
No.
Because we had different personalities.
Yeah.
And at the time, I think for both of us, you had worked in esports for a while, like 2012. I remember you were at Worlds.
Yeah.
And
but not long compared to you, though.
I mean, 2012, I wasn't even there.
Yeah.
I only did 2013.
Yeah, but you were at least doing esports.
I was. Like, I got to shoutcast MLG Summer Arena and DreamHack. So I did 2 events, but they weren't on the scale. And I think that was the first major event on an individual level where we both sort of went, we're actually
this is happening. This is
because we were both next to Joe and D-Man, who were industry veterans.
Yeah.
And we were the new kids on the block still trying to prove ourselves.
Little did you know 6 months later you would be in Staples Center doing the analyst desk as well.
Yep.
We'll get to that. Yeah. Our paths kind of, they cross and they are linear, but I think for the longest time we worked together, but we didn't work together.
Yeah, parallel.
We worked parallel, and you've said already that you go for your goal. You're a bit rough on the edges in this, and not very emotional. And I am the complete opposite. Definitely back then, I was trying to figure everything out. I was incredibly stressed all the time. And I was like this whole keg of emotions all the time. And I think that made everything very, very difficult in the beginning for us too.
We were just so different. You used the term perfectly, a keg of emotion and linear, I'm going to say robot.
Robot.
Because I'm very like everything's logic and process.
Yeah.
And I think we definitely hated what one another did, but we did not know one another.
Yeah.
And I don't think we ever took the time to get to know one another because we're both very driven.
Yeah.
We're both very stubborn. We both have our own way of doing things and seeing things. And that meant we clashed a lot. And I definitely think at the time, I think I would have said I hated you.
Really?
I think so.
Yeah.
But I never once took the time in 2013 and 14 and maybe even 15 to really stop and actually try to talk to you like a human being.
I definitely remember times where I thought you made me miserable. Now, I've been thinking a lot about this, and I think a lot of it also has to do with the fact that in those early days, the whole show was very, very caster driven, right? It was very much driven by us. And there were, of course, producers and everything else, but basically what ended up being said and what ended up being on screen really came from us, a lot of it, right?
Yeah.
And I feel like you naturally kind of emerged as a leader in that, next to the producers and whatnot. And I definitely think that I could not deal with your style of just talking in general. I was quite introverted in that space, yet very emotional when I wasn't being heard. You gave feedback in such an insanely direct manner.
It was always blunt. And at the time, I always felt justified because I'm like, I'm giving feedback.
So it's
you will get better. This is my thought. This is my feeling.
Yeah.
And it took a long time for me to understand that I need to pivot how I say things. And I know for a fact that I pushed your buttons at times. And I know even silly things, like one of my strongest memories was we were in a shuttle to the show one day, and I think you were sitting up front and you put some music on, and I basically attacked you because you put like hip hop and R&B on. And we got into this really heated debate where I was like, your music's shit. And you were like, no, but you're an idiot. How can you say that? And I don't know why it stuck with me for such a long time. And what I really, really like is over the years, as we've both grown and become close, I've just recently started listening to like British crime, and I actually sent you a WhatsApp saying, I'm listening to it. And it's that memory is burned into my brain because I'm embarrassed by it. Like, I look back at some of the things I did.
Me too.
And some of the things that how I acted with, working with you. And it was childish.
Why was it us that were so, like, why was it just us? Because you're in an environment where everyone is driven. There's so much stress because not a lot of people realize there is no bigger deadline in the world than creating a 12-hour live show every week on a Saturday and a Sunday with no breaks in between, right? But there's more people in that team. Joe
so
and
I have a theory. I have a theory.
Yeah.
And my theory is that you and I are more alike in a lot of different areas than we knew at the time.
Yeah.
And the only thing we prioritized was work. But we approached it from different ways. And because we were coming at our work from different directions, and because your emotions distracted me from my logic, you got in the way of my work and the way I work. And because the way I communicated and spoke, in my opinion, may have impacted how you felt, which then got in the way of the way you worked.
But you didn't care how it was,
I know, I didn't care.
And I didn't care how you felt about what I was doing.
I genuinely did not have an interest. And you were just a speed bump sometimes in getting to my goal.
Yeah.
But we were both we were doing the same thing. But neither of us ever stopped and looked back. And interestingly, I think we've both grown as individuals and we've grown as professionals.
Yeah.
And as we've become more aware of our own strengths and weaknesses, and we've worked on our own strengths and weaknesses, we've then gone, it wasn't her fault.
Yeah.
I really wanted it to be, but it wasn't. That was my fault. And I had to have that epiphany.
Well, I definitely, what you say about thinking back of things, I have so many moments that I think back that I was like, why did I act like that in this situation? And I think it's tricky to say, especially nowadays, because I wouldn't dare say that your gut reactions and what you feel like is correct is wrong. The same I wouldn't say bar all emotions from a conference room or whatever. But it was just that the both were on such extreme ends. It was extreme coldness and bluntness versus extremely emotional behavior that just completely exploded, right? And it was so hard because when you're in it, you don't see it. Yeah. And I also think I think at another job, you or I might have gotten fired.
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
And I also think the reason neither of us did get fired is we were lucky that we did not work for the same company for 2 years.
You worked for Riot.
I was for Riot, you for ESL.
Yeah.
Then when we moved to Berlin, the whole company and a lot of people were quite unhappy with the move and quite nervous. And, we'd had a life and established in Cologne. So our disagreements and headbutting almost got swept under the rug. And the other thing
also, the show was going well.
Yes, but also the way that we worked in silos. We could legitimately not talk to each other for entire days. Yeah. And you could prepare your hosting
and I love
interviews,
that.
and I could prepare my play-by-play. And the only time we would talk would be in a 45-minute meeting. We'd go, so what points do you want to say? We'll write them down.
Still managed to tilt me off.
Of course we did.
Yeah.
But I think, we found a way at first to stop openly fighting.
Yeah.
And we kind of had this armistice agreement in the office. And then I think once we'd both grown up, once we both got better at not only our jobs, and once the office grew, we got more people around us. When other casters and other producers started getting affected by our fighting, then we had to actually confront it and deal with it. And what I'm so happy about is that this wasn't a situation where it was Trevor had to learn how to change to work with Eefje. Oh, Eefje had to change this. We both acknowledged.
Yeah.
And I really, really remember the first few fights, the first few discussions about our fights.
Then they were discussions.
And how emotional we both got. And we only really started becoming friends 2015, 2016-ish. As the Berlin era and the modern era of League of Legends in Europe was taking off.
Definitely. It's so weird to think back about because you never know, it's hard to change your own core behavior when you're in the middle of it. And when, to be honest, you're dealing with a lot, we're trying to do this show. You have all this criticism from the outside. You have this criticism coming from upstairs in the company about what to do better. You're not a full-grown adult yet you are on that show in front of thousands, hundred thousands, millions of people sometimes, and you're this perfect human being, and you're I was the furthest from a perfect human being I could ever be, still growing, right? So it's absolutely crazy. I honestly think I got very close to not being where I am today because of what I did, and I think for me personally, I was very emotionally unstable for a long time, and I'm very happy that because of you also, I got to realize that, and I got help for it, and I got to grow as a person, and there are not as many people that are lucky enough to have that, right?
You need the time and the support.
Yeah.
And I absolutely agree that I learned from you perceptions and understanding. And you were the first person I worked with that taught me how important emotional awareness is in the office.
Yeah.
because like I said earlier, I'm driven, I'm focused. I want to get jobs done. I want to be successful. I want to...
So do I, but it doesn't look the same.
It doesn't, no.
Yeah.
But for me, the only thing that matters is the goal. The only thing that matters. And I used to have a mentality that if I had to run over people to get to my goal, I would do it because I'd be successful and the goal would happen.
Yeah.
And yes, somebody may be laying on the floor injured, but like stuff it, I'm there.
You know what is interesting about that? I feel like I feel exactly the same way, but the person I'm trampling over is myself.
Right.
Because instead of, now I'm better at it. And I think it's also a skill that I learned. I can hold my own for the last couple of years. And when I believe in something, I will say it out loud in a room of 10, 20, 30 people, and I don't care. But back then it was only about, I'll do it and I'll be in my little bubble and I'll try and make it happen. And if I don't sleep and if I'm mad at myself and if I'm emotional, I don't care. But what I didn't realize was that, of course, you're taking down people with you. And of course, it's oozing out of you, right? And in general, working in a team, although it's not always as explosive as it was with us, is a very difficult thing. And that's why you really see a difference of people that, just come in any kind of team setting or group dynamic discussion setting. And I feel like we've grown into being mentors of a kind because of what we went through. And I'm not saying everyone should go through that.
No,
definitely not. But
and also, our circumstances, the way things were structured, the way people were managed and whatnot, there's never been a world where on-air talent work in the same room for the same amount of hours, for the same number of weeks, for the same amount of road shows in the same amount of countries with different approaches to work. But like you said, it makes me so happy to hear you say that the perception of like getting to the goal and trampling, I trample others, you trample yourself.
I trample myself. Yeah.
Again, it just goes back to what I was saying earlier, is that the two of us are very, very similar in many, many ways, and it manifests differently.
Yeah.
And we didn't have the experience, the knowledge, or the language to maybe even explain what we were feeling, let alone try to understand somebody else.
Isn't it strange how we went from not being able to talk about anything to now, and I consider you a friend as well, but also in the work setting, I am not nervous to bring up anything that is difficult.
I'm exactly the same.
If it has to be said, it has to be said. And I might still, circle a little bit, back up and back, but it'll get said. It brought us to a good point, and I think, we're friends, but we're also colleagues, and we've been through kind of everything with the production. And 2019, Trevor and Eefje are super happy with the LEC and with the studio and with everything around it. But it's been kind of an uphill battle for a long time.
It has. And I think not only has it been an uphill battle for the region and for the league, but you and I have been through the wars.
Yeah.
But we came out of it as stronger people. We came out of it winning. And the analogy we used earlier was we have a goal. We have places we want to be.
Yeah.
We both want to be the most successful that we possibly can be in whatever project we want to work on. And I actually think moving to Berlin and becoming the figureheads of European League at the time, along with Martin, that we had the host and interviewer, the play-by-play and the color that were the mentors and the most experienced.
Yeah.
We all got to be winners in our own, environment. And maybe when I don't feel like I'm competing with you on some subconscious level, we started to accept one another and appreciate one another's skill set.
And it's weird because now I'm happy to compete again, and we're in the show. And
now it's healthy.
Yeah, now it's healthy indeed. It is true because then, of course, the big loss of Joe and Demon. And I remember thinking, nobody's ever going to like us. We might as well just not do the show. And it was just so incredibly stressful. And it just worked and it got better every single year. So we are so close to the finals in Athens and, playoffs. And it's kind of the ending of our first year of LEC as well. It's been an interesting one. And now it's almost over. It flew by.
It's been awesome. It's been exciting because there's so many different things that we've done. You went freelance for the first time. It was the first full year with
I'm not going to do it again.
Without Deficio. And it's continuing. You did awesome. And so it's going to carry on. But, new faces, new brand, new teams, going back to Athens, it's really, really cool. It feels like the best year that Europe's ever had.
It does. And I do always add the caveat to that for people that are like, oh, LEC is when everything started. But I feel like people kind of see LEC and associate it with a lot of the good that has happened. But for me, it started at the beginning of 2018 already. That was kind of the point where we already knew what was coming, that the NALCS and the EULCS would be disconnected more definitively than before, because I think for many years there was this attempt for like, oh, it's different. But I don't think it really happened until the beginning of last year.
I mean, you're 100% right. And I also think not only did we start planning for this season in 2018, but every single year we cut more and more cords from NA. You know, we used to be produced by them. We used to pipe them all the cameras and the feeds and the games. And Santa Monica,
like a 0.5 second delay of 0.3.
Yes, the play-by-play was delayed for a few years because of the technology and how we had to stream it. We hired more people. We expanded our shoutcasting team. We got more resources in Berlin in publishing and league ops and social. And I think, like you said, in 2018, we internally knew that it was going to happen. We knew a rebrand was happening. I know you love taking part in the workshops, working with the studios to do explorations for name and brand.
Even though, you know, it wasn't universally loved from the start, people, and I hate when people say, who came up with that? Like, really, do you think someone sat down and just drew a logo and made up a name? And yes, it isn't perfect, and I get that, but it's never going to be.
What I love about how passionate you are right now is we've done a lot of different workshops and training and things over the years.
Yeah.
But I very rarely remember, thank you for saying it, you being as excited as when you came out of the workshop for the rebrand for EULCS. Yeah. And you actually looked at people and went, you missed out. Like, that was one of the coolest things. You know, we did this and we drew things and we wrote stuff on boards and like, you were so passionate and invested, but because you care about the product, you care about the league, you care about the game.
For me, it was the symbolism. It was, and you'll be able to understand this. It's like we were there from the beginning and we got the bad end of the stick from the community, by our own doing, right? By production issues that were not in our hands, but then sometimes completely out of production's hands as well. But yes, there were too many errors on each side. We weren't as perfectionists, but then people were very negative constantly for years, and NA was always so much better. And I don't know, that made me so unhappy.
The thing we have to acknowledge, though, is that we never ignored it.
No.
We never, ever just went, it's fine, this is what it is. Like, we tried.
We tried so hard.
And
nobody noticed.
Not just the shoutcasters, but, you know, the production team, the stats team.
Especially them.
The publishing team, the video team. Like, one of the things I'm the most proud of is not only did this 2018 planning lead to the season we've just had, but every single department had the right direction and the right lead, that even though we hit speed bumps along the way, even though we're not going to ignore the problems that we had, we're not going to ignore the technical delays or the narrativitis or, you know, like we've had issues, but we're going to admit it and we're going to say we've learned from it, we've got better. And, you know, when you look forward to, and you look back at the 2019 season and even the 2018 season, when Martin went freelance last year and he left us, you and I were the last two figureheads.
We thought, what is going to happen?
And we were nervous.
Yeah.
And then you look at the young kids around us and you look at the people we have, but then you look at all the resources with every other department. And we started going, you know, we're nailing this. We nailed it so much that Eefje's like, I'm going to quit and go freelance and do other things, right? And then we came into this year, we being now Riot and LEC, and went, okay, so now we have to plan without Sjokz for like 5 weeks of split. Like, how are we going to do this? And luckily, we managed to make it work with like Machine and bring in X-Scoundrel, and you see the growth. And like, there's always going to be a different challenge. The challenges will vary, whatever they may be. Yeah. But this team and this product is going to thrive and survive and do the best they can.
Because of the people that are in it, right? And I always look at it as kind of like, it was never that the ambition and the ideas weren't there, but it is only in 2018 and 2019 that I feel like everyone, the casters, anyone who works in video production who had an idea, in audio, in graphics, in stats, in producers, everyone I'm forgetting, in observing, everyone who had that idea was able to make some of those happen. And believe it or not, but it's what people are like, oh my God, the production is through the roof. It's only a glimpse of what is in all these people's heads and has been for so long.
And the thing that I find funny is the same people that are saying this is the best production ever and these content guys are amazing. I wonder what happened.
The same guys.
Thank you. Right? And it's just the right injection. And, we also have some luck on our side. And
of course.
We've had some fantastic games.
Fnatic got to the World Final. Right? Yay, that's easy.
So you can't disregard those things. But it's exciting that we live and work in a league, in an office, in a region that's willing to take chances. We've always been willing to take chances, whether you've agreed with them or not. The best of two era, I'll say, as an example, right? But the main thing is we're going to push the envelope. We're going to push the boundaries, and we're going to learn. And we're always going to get better.
So how awesome is Athens going to be?
I don't know, because I'm not casting.
At all?
No.
At all?
Not at all. So as you know, I'm the people manager for the on-air team.
Yeah.
And last summer was the first time I did not shoutcast a European final in 3 years. Mm-hmm. Dracos did it.
Yeah.
And when I said to my producer, our boss, Dirk, that I wanted Dracos to do it, he laughed. Like actually laughed out loud. And then I gave him my reasons, and he said no. So I didn't take it for us. He's my boss. He said no to my pitch. So I did the best thing I did. I crowdsourced. I went, Eefje, Vedius.
What do you guys think?
Frosk, everybody come help. Endeg, let's go chat. Go convince Dirk. Convince him. Eventually Dirk says to me, it's your head on the line. If Dracos doesn't deliver,
and he bombs,
then it's your fault. You're the manager. You made the call. I'd only been a manager for about 7 or 8 months. He didn't. He nailed it. Mm-hmm. So we got into spring this year. We had a really big discussion, and it was a tough discussion because performance wasn't the only factor. It was the first LEC final. Frankly put, I think Medic was probably one of the better performing casters in spring. But then we also had to factor in things like brand, tenure, trust, faith, and all these different factors. And I'm not sure I'm happy with how spring went. Mm-hmm. So I spoke to the team. I spoke very specifically to Dracos and to Medic, who I actually compete with, when it comes to these spots.
Yeah.
There are 2 days of games. There are 3 play-by-plays. One of us has to sit out. And we had very, very healthy discussions. And we reviewed every aspect of the decision-making process. And I said to Medic specifically, who's not yet attended a roadshow with us, if you can show me consistency over MSI and over Rift Rivals where I knew he was going, if you can hit the performance that I've seen for the second half of spring, then we'll get there. And by week 5 of summer, I knew Medic was going to be there.
Yeah.
What makes me so happy is I had pitched the producers already. And I said, okay, look, in terms of my role, I have to push my team. We're looking at what Frosk and Vedius and Ender are doing, and I can push them. And I'm challenging you by bringing in competition for you, right? And I'm like, hey, this is what I can do for play-by-play. So I said to producers that my plan was for Medic and Dracos to cast. And they said, ooh, this is bold. Like, not having Trevor at all. Like, how are fans going to react? How is this the right idea? And as I worked through it, we hit about week 6 or week 7, and Dracos pulls me aside. By this point, I already have approval for Medic, right? Everyone's like, okay, Medic has shown his consistency, all the things we wanted to see in his development and his growth and his reception to feedback, and more importantly, his delivery on broadcast have been consistent. So they said, cool, Medic's there. Now me and Dracos are fighting for a spot. Dracos comes up to me and he's like, okay, Trevor, K-Bell's our other producer. He goes, I have something very serious, it's about Athens, and I feel really strongly. And I said, Dracos, it's fine. Medic's going to be there. And he went, oh, okay then. He had this whole speech planned, and he was coming to say to me, he believes Medic should be there. So then before Dracos could respond, I was like, oh, by the way, I want you to know I don't want to be there. His jaw nearly hit the floor. And he looked me in the eyes and he says, that's a bad idea. And Dracos believes I should cast. I believe Dracos should cast. I have enough support from the producers to make the decision within the team. And what I'm actually going to do is after the casting in week 8 is actually discuss with the entire Shoutcaster squad. Let's make an informed decision. Let's see what's the best for both the product and the team. And I'm convinced I'll get my way that it's Dracos because it's the right answer.
It's hard for me to say because I haven't been there as often, but I do listen very often, right? And I think we're finally at a point where you can make the decision and it might be argued, but essentially nobody can disagree with the decision you come to. And that could have just been you as well, right? I think you can make, of course you can make a definite case for that, but they're in such a good spot that nobody can really be angry, in my opinion, about and giving them that chance, because let's be honest here, you will still value quality. And if Medic or Dracos bomb, then they're going to have to prove themselves all over again, right?
Exactly. And at the end of the day, there's more at stake for them individually than anybody else, right? There's going to be LEC in 2020. There's going to be road shows. There's going to be European teams playing in the regional qualifiers and at Worlds. We're going to get those good games. So if in the worst case scenario, an individual shoutcaster has a bad day, doesn't deliver, makes big mistakes, it's their career that is harmed the most, right?
Yeah.
And one of the things that I find both uplifting and exciting and terrifying about that is we've got these guys that put their literal jobs on the line every day on live broadcast. We've felt the pressure. You and I are such veterans now that, let's be frank, we can be so comfortable and confident in so many scenarios that it's rare for us to be terrified, right? Put yourself back in 2013, Eefje's shoes for the first time in Gamescom. And that's where Medic is now. But the difference is Medic has you and me and 6 years of growth around
Everyone around it.
for support and for growth. And
For be the next generation.
Yes. And the truth is, just like every European team and pro, the next generation will replace the older guys at some point.
Yeah.
And as long as we're doing it in the right way and building them up in the right time, that's kind of what my role entails, is making sure that the broadcast quality and the people that are on our show continue to live the legacy that we've built.
Don't turn into a salty person who wants to take opportunities away from someone else, right? And I have two questions to that because this is so interesting. One, you talk about it's not just about how you do on air, but it's about all the rest. But if I'm a viewer, I don't give a rat's ass that Medic was not friendly to you in the office, that he didn't go give you any feedback when you asked for it, and that he came in late, right? Because if he gives me the best cast as a viewer that I've ever heard, then of course I'm going to be angry at you for not putting him there. How do you kind of work with that balance, and where's the balance for you? Like, how much is it? Is it 70% on air, 30 off air? Is it?
Oh, no, it's definitely not that high. I think it's like 60% on air, 40% everything else, right? Because it's not only preparation and feedback and mentality, but it's also brand, reputation, trust, confidence. Give you an example, right? And I'm confident that the story I'm about to tell, Medic is comfortable sharing. One of the reasons that he and I have talked about growth areas for him is some consistency when he's excited in storytelling. Medic is one of the most powerful play-by-plays on the planet. He is a better team fight play-by-play than I am. This is a fact. If you listen to his verbiage, if you listen to his tone, if you listen to his power, he is better than me.
His wordplay?
At his best, right? His wordplay is fantastic.
Yeah.
Now, where I am better than him is I can read a situation, whether it's in game, whether it's in a stadium, whether it's crazy picks, and I can choose the right words to offend the least amount of people, okay? So I play it fairly safe, but I still hit close to his highs.
Yeah.
And one of the things that Medic knows and has spoken about, he's joked about narrativitis, and he's overused words and stories. And I was challenging him to work on this. You know, I was really challenging. But when you have such a booming, powerful voice, of course, everyone's going to hear it, right? So he's got this double-edged sword. His best strength also became his biggest blips.
Yeah.
And we talked a lot about it. And when we discuss those things, when you see how people action that feedback and work on it, I have to take those factors into account as well. And then you have to make a prediction. When you put this person in front of thousands of people in a stadium, in a game that you don't know what's going to happen, what if the Garen top pick happens in front of 15,000 people in an Olympic stadium in Athens with 500,000 people watching, and somebody says something that's damaging, right?
Yeah.
And that's where I have to make that call. And it's really tough.
The responsibility seems absolutely insane because you're not only, because you might talk about the new generation, but you are still casting.
Yep.
You are still one of the most visible people in League of Legends esports and esports in general. So you have to keep doing a good job. And you're taking on the backpack of emotions and criticism of all these other
and
casters.
Performance as well.
That must be hard to balance. How are you still standing up?
I'm not. I'm not.
That's crazy.
2018 was really, really rough.
Yeah.
And I let my ego get ahead of me, and I was so confident I was going to be so good at it.
I remember that because whenever there was something, I was like, Trevor will do it. Or you were like, I'll do it. I'll do it. I'll do it.
And last year, I definitely failed to hit the same highs. You know, I'm a perfectionist. I want to do the absolute best I can in absolutely everything. And if we're going to use League of Legends ranks, like I aim for the S in everything.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, for a long time, let me rephrase this, for a couple of years, let's say at least 2016, 17, I feel like my play-by-play casting, especially with the Fisher by my side, was hitting S's and A's very consistently.
Yeah.
And in 2018, when I took on the managerial roles, I think I was hitting B's. And even though I may not have ever felt I was hitting a C, my lowest quality cast still had a lot of good elements in it. But what you don't see and what viewers don't understand is by me not hitting those S's, I'm not harming the product. I'm just holding its potential down.
How are you dealing? Is that hurting you? Because we know how driven you are. We know how perfectionist you are. But at some point, you have to
make a choice.
How far are you off?
I made the
choice.
That choice. No. I made the choice. And what the choice was to acknowledge where I was weak, acknowledge where I was failing to deliver. The reason my shoutcasting suffered was because my managerial duties took up more time and I was not equipped to do them. The expectations, the tools that I needed to use, performance review, performance management, feedback, budgeting, budget review, accounting, billing, invoicing. These are all the things that I had not done in over 10 years. Yeah. I hadn't done this since straight out of university. And from last year to this year and working with my manager, I was very, very frank and honest and said, I need to cut back. There are certain things I can't deliver on, and there's certain things I'm very passionate about. And what this means is I will ramp up in my manager performance, but it will be a little bit slower. I'm going to do it right, and I need to prioritize my time.
Well, what people want to know is, how long are we still going to have you casting?
I want to cast for a while yet. I'm not done.
Same.
I'm not done. When we're preparing for this segment, you wrote something to me about being a corporate man, the oldies.
Yeah.
I like companies, you know. My parents worked in big corporates, and I understand the politics of a corporate entity of several thousand people, and I'm good at it. I like it.
I hate it.
And you know, not everybody. It's not cut out for everybody, right?
I hate climbing the ladder.
And it's like I would love to eventually just manage a team of shoutcasters and just watch their performance. And I'd love to know that me picking these people unlock these things. And I've got a taste of that already. Mm-hmm. You know, you look at the EU team and you look at how it has been curated and crafted. Together we built it because I know, especially with Martin and you over the last few years, the new names that were coming up, the three of us were the three biggest voices in.
Spent a lot of time with them.
Yes.
Now, the birds have flown.
I'm still going to cast. I still love it. One thing that I love is that, you know, as part of my plan, ramping up towards playoffs and then ramping up towards the World Championship, I was like, I need to get back to my S's in casting.
You need that World Final?
I do. It's what I'm fighting for, right? I want it. I want to earn it again. And I don't just want to be given it. I want to earn it. And if you look back to any of my vitality calls, and if you look back to my Papa Smithy pie discussion, I make very deliberate choices and I make very specific calculated risks. And ironically, some of the feedback that I gave to guys like Medic and to Dracos about not being overly harsh, not being overly bold, I can get away with because my brand is a little different and I have a little bit more safety. So calling Vitality out for like, you're professional players. We had a huge debate about it because if Medic had done it, would the community have loved it? We don't know, right? But I made a gamble and
it's still constantly evolving.
I doubled down on my casting, and it's just, I have to balance my priorities. More importantly, I have to pick and choose. When do I prioritize casting? When do I prioritize managing? And I have to balance those both.
So as we start wrapping things up, I do want to get back to something we talked about in the beginning about, other people casting the final and you not being there in Athens. So are we not going to see you at all in Athens or?
No, not going to be that lucky. Okay. No, I will be there, just in a different capacity. Our opening ceremonies in Europe are something that we've been very proud of for a long time. And I love them. I love doing them. So I definitely will be doing the opening ceremonies on stage. But also as the road shows have grown and expanded, we've added a lot of different activations. So in spring, we had this huge community area with, sponsors having booths there and teams having activations. Our business development team and them inviting potential new sponsors as well as showing existing sponsors things that are happening. It's an area that I'm quite competent and quite comfortable in. Yeah. So I'm actually going to be working very closely with the BD team during the show, before the show. But the main stuff on broadcast will be opening ceremonies. And of course, you're going to be there.
I'm going to be there. I don't know. You're my boss.
You are there.
Hire me. So.
Listen, you signed the paperwork.
Yeah, I did.
You're going to be there.
Yeah, I'm super hyped as well. And I'm actually really happy that you, that even though you won't be casting, which people, let's say some people will be disappointed, but that you get to kind of do your opening ceremonies and everyone has their own special thing.
The future will thrive with young talent, and the future will thrive with everybody doing well.
Yeah, not just
some opinion leaders. You can't have the same person being the same role forever if you want to be able to grow. And it's actually something that drove me, and it's something that pushed me. I read a Pokemon quote years and years and years ago. It was like the second or third game after Red, Blue, and Yellow, and the quote from one of the characters in the game, I didn't even play the game, was work until your idols become your rivals and then defeat them. And it was something that really, really drove me. And it was something that always reminded me to look back at myself and to get better.
So true.
And now I'm looking at some of my team, my members who are looking at me as a rival.
But what are we going to do next, Trevor?
That's what we're going to figure out.
We're going to figure it out.
We're going to figure it out together.
Yeah, I'd love to figure it out together. That's a great... that's a great way to end this. In general, I want to thank you. This has been a great conversation, maybe a bit intense, but yeah, it's been nice.
It's been really refreshing to talk about things that we've gone through on a personal level that we've never spoken about on a professional level. I'm really happy to have had the chance.
Me too. Thank you very much, Trevor.
Thank you.
Well, there we go. That was it. So we'll see you next time.